All right, Rick, I could just have Debo replay our segment from a year ago about how the Chiefs roster was built and get out of here because it feels like we're talking about this team every year. Things have changed, of course, especially with the wide receiver crew. But in general, do you have a sense of what Brett Veach and Andy Reid want to do when they're putting this group together?
Yeah, there's no question that they are heavily involved in trying to draft well and then build that team through the draft. And last year, when they won the Super Bowl, look at the draft picks that they had.
Boy.
All the guys on the defensive side of the ball had to come in and start. And Steve and Spags and that whole defensive group did a great job identifying talent and developing it. McDuffie is, I think he's an all-pro the way he's played and how quickly he's come along. And Karlaftis and all the guys that contributed as a rookie. And Karlaftis took another step this year into being a very good football player. I don't think their rookie class had as big of impact this year as they did in previous years, but Kansas City seems to want to spend the money if they do go and dabble in free agency, always up front on the offensive line, whether that's Tooney, whether that is, Taylor, who they signed from Jacksonville this year and gave him a lot of money. So it seems like if they're going to get aggressive and go out and maybe spend some money on free agency, that it's going to be up front on the offensive line. But because of Mahomes, because they had to pay Mahomes, that this is the difference between them and San Francisco, in my opinion. San Francisco still has a flexibility to go out and do a Christian McCaffrey or Chase Young or a Hargrave or those type of guys to come in and have an immediate impact, where Kansas City, now they're paying their quarterback, have to rely on those coaches and those scouts bringing in talent through the draft and relying on them to step in and fill some of the voids that they may lose in free agency. Pacheco, another one. Yeah, that's been outstanding.
I was just going to say, they've absolutely crushed it in the draft, which allows you to pay your quarterback like he deserves to be paid. But even going back to 2020, Willie Gay, L'Jarius Sneed, Michael Dana in that draft class. The 21 class, Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Noah Gray's contributor. Trey Smith was drafted in the 6th round because he had some medical concerns, but he's the starting guard, and he's really good. And then you mentioned McDuffie, last year's draft class, Karlaftis. Sky Moore, maybe, I don't want to come to the biggest disappointment, but he has been the least productive so far, and they have hopes for him, certainly. But Brian Cook, before he got hurt, was playing, starting at safety. Josh Williams stepped in from Fayetteville State to play corner. Jalen Watson, the 7th round pick, along with Isaiah Pacheco, both starters last year. And that's uncommon to have 2 7th round picks start for you on both sides of the ball and actually play pretty well. But that's when you get the guys right on day 3, like you were talking about earlier. That's how that works when you have someone like Patrick Mahomes. And then this year, of course, they took Rashee Rice. Shamari Conner played a little bit. Shamari Conner didn't fall in that fumble in the Bills game in the playoffs and almost jumped through the screen. And but he's gotten some run. And then Felix under DK Uzama, he might be on the George Karlaftis pass. You don't need him to dominate year 1, the edge rusher out of Kansas State. But Rashee Rice has come on and then some. And I don't remember where you were in Rashee, but in Senior Bowl, I didn't love him.
Yeah, we talked about him last year, and we were questioning how fast he is because he was in a lot of contested situations. Now, he had great hands, made a lot of catches in contested situations, but probably underestimated the athlete, and the athlete with the ball in his hands after the catch
A little bit.
was much seen it a lot more than maybe that he's seen in college. But there was no question about his hands and his ability to go up and get the ball. And he struggled early in the season, just like a lot of these rookies. And then all of a sudden, the second half of the season, and now he's hitting it right when Kansas City needs it because they need someone else to throw the ball to besides Kelsey. The other guy that kind of stepped in and did a pretty good job with Donovan Smith got cut by Tampa. Kansas City signed him to play the left tackle because they replaced both tackles this year. But Wani Morris came in and played on the left side and filled in admirably. And I think he's going to be their starting left tackle going forward after this season.
We saw him at the Senior Bowl, and we both were impressed with him because there wasn't a lot of Wanya Morris buzz at the time because Anton Harrison was the was the guy we were talking about. I think Wanya played. He must have played right tackle at Oklahoma.
He was the right tackle. Yeah. Yep. And
so the fact that he's
athletic right tackle, and then to identify that athleticism and start developing him on the left side, again, kudos to Brett Veach and that scouts and coaching staff, because that's the most critical piece of all this that we're talking about, is that it's not like the old days where scouts will get you the players and you just coach what we get. It has to be a collaborative effort, because everybody's vested in those players when they come in the building. And if you can get the coaches and the scouts to sign off on guys, then they have a chance to have a chance if you were right in your evaluation.
So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, we've talked this to death because he's Patrick Mahomes, but that draft class was Mitch Trubisky, was what's his name? Deshaun Watson. And then we had Patrick Mahomes. Do you remember? We've talked about this already numerous times. Caleb Williams is better coming out of college than Patrick Mahomes was. What were the concerns about Patrick? Because when I went back, we talked about this in the fall when we were yelling this year about Caleb holding the ball too long. Patrick got the ball out quickly, and as you noted, he was in the air raid offense with Kingsbury. What were the concerns with Patrick? Was it the transition from the air raid college to what that would look like in the NFL, or anything else?
Yeah, and he didn't have to play right away, so he was able to sit behind Alex Smith for a year to learn. But it was, you've seen the arm talent, you've seen the athleticism, the off-schedule throws that he made were some incredible throws at Texas Tech. It was just, is that going to translate to the NFL? And if you can, I don't want to say, best way to say, rein in that horse a little bit, because he was a little bit of he didn't mind putting on a Cowboy Joe rodeo show when he was out there at Texas Tech.
Show. That's a new one. Mark that one down, Debo.
But that's what makes Patrick Mahomes. But the thing that you're seeing, even last year, even when they traded away Tyreek Hill, and even this year where the receivers struggled with the drops, all of a sudden when it's crunch time and these games mean something, and when you get into the playoffs, for whatever he has, and that's what you're trying to identify in these quarterbacks, whatever that ability is in his head or in his heart, he just takes it to another level. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks that have that. This, like Tom, the great ones all do that, and you have to put Patrick Mahomes in that category.
Have you ever looked into a player's eyes or face, saw his face, and you had a sense that this was not going to go well? Like you knew that. Every time I look into you and Debo's eyes in this podcast, it's like, oh God. But I mean, you talk about Patrick Mahomes, like, okay, I have Andy Reid has nothing to worry about above the neck. But sometimes you have the best athlete on the field who's a head case, and you're not sure how things are going to look. They don't trust
that's the things you try to identify with all the tests, even though those aren't as accurate as you think they are, a la S2 with CJ Stroud. But even last year when I did go to the Super Bowl, we did have CJ Stroud on the set. You could sense that when you talked to that guy, there was something there when you looked at him in his eyes, and we were interviewing him. Even though we were kidding around with him a little bit, you can tell there was something to that kid, the way he interviewed and the way he was looking at us when we were on the set.
One other thing I want to ask you about Patrick Mahomes, and we'll get out of there. You hear it all the time. You talk about the off-schedule throws and the arm angles. Does baseball matter? Is that a good thing that he played baseball, or is that just something we talk about in the media?
I think maybe baseball. I don't know. I wish I was smart enough to say that. I mean, you were the minor league baseball guy?
I was a backup on my college baseball team. So, yes, I think that's the same description.
It did make a difference. You're doing a podcast with me.
I didn't win a national title and get to the Hall of Fame, Rick, if that's what you're asking me.
So it may have something to do with it, with the arm angles. But I've seen guys that weren't very good baseball players probably, or never played baseball, that are pretty good quarterbacks.
You did win a national title, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I thought you did. I want to make sure I wasn't giving you too much credit. Yeah, the Salukis. You beat Western Carolina, is that correct?
Western Carolina, Clyde Simmons back in the day.
Clyde Simmons was on that team. That's right, Debo's guy, Clyde Simmons.